I think what Prudhomme needs to realize is that the reason why cycling is going faster and faster, yes, the equipment has improved. Yes, the roads have improved. There's not much you can do about that, but the main reason is that the athletes have gotten better and better. Nowadays, you can see that races are going fast from the start till the finish. If I think back, not even in my days, but even in Lance's and George's period, the races didn't go full gas all the time. There was usually, a warm up. There was a breakaway that went, and then the peloton slowed down. And you were using basically the easy parts of the course to recover. Downhills, they didn't go full gas. They go full gas everywhere now. So what can you do to stop that? Nothing.
Everybody, welcome back to The Move Plus, our weekly installment of the show. I'm here with Johan Bruyneel. I'm Spencer Martin. I am going to run through a few topics of the week, and then we'll get to a few listener questions. Again, if you want those read, please email info@wedo.team, and we will get to them as soon as we can. But first, Johan, before we get into the show, I wanted to talk about today's title sponsor, which is Zwift. Zwift just released their Zwift Ride bike, an all-new smart bike that is changing the indoor game and making it easier and more affordable than ever to get started riding indoors. The bike is ultra quiet and super easy to set up. You just need one tool. The frame key, which comes on the bike, is stored on the bike. Very easy to keep track of. It does the saddle height, the bar height, the reach. And once you're done with that frame key, just throw it right back into the magnetic holder. This is key because you can have one bike for everyone in your family. They can just change it to fit whatever you need. And Johan, I'm on the road again. You're at home with your Zwift Ride, racking up your miles. You're going to crush me in this Strava yearly challenge. Again, I'm just planning. I'm at Richard Plug out here in San Diego. We're planning my 2025 campaign to try to come back and get you. But the Zwift Ride is perfect for anyone in the house. It's perfect for anyone to use in the house, like I said, and it starts at $1,299.99. It's a game changer. So head to Zwift.com to check it out now. And if you get a Zwift ride, or if you're just on Zwift, you can join WeDo for our WeDo Wednesday rides. It's a casual, they call it a casual no drop ride. I don't know if that actually bears out. You got to go pretty hard to keep up. But even if you get dropped, there's always a big group back there in the gruppetto. And we also have Suffer Sundays for those looking for a little bit more. But Johan, how have you liked your Zwift ride so far? I'm pretty jealous of this. This is a pretty interesting piece of kit.
I just got it last week. So thank you, Zwift. It's quite impressive actually. I'm quite surprised. It's very easy to assemble, as they state, with one key, and the riding experience is a whole different game. I just used it for the first time last Wednesday on WeDo Wednesday. Whenever I have the occasion, I jump on, and I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, you can fine tune the position to perfection, both in the seat height, the stem length, and then especially also what's super entertaining is the interactive handlebars. Now you can kind of move through the peloton. You can move your avatar whenever you want to go to the side. You can brake and go on the wheel. So I think I'm honestly preferring this to my former setup, which was a normal road bike with the Wahoo kicker. I guess it's called the Wahoo kicker.
Yeah.
Smart trainer. This combination is definitely a level up. So it's motivating and very simple to operate. So love it.
Yeah, it's really simple. I have a competitor that will go nameless, but there was this big push to have these like super complex indoor bikes, and then Zwift has just gone really simple, and it brings the price down. It's not as heavy. I mean, the main thing is just having one bike. As you said, you can put your bike on the trainer, but then, you're switching the bikes out, or someone else in your house is changing your bike position to fit them. And there's like wear and tear associated with your bike. If you're riding it indoors, you're sweating more than you would outside, or sweating, I guess it's not evaporating. And just like drive chain wearing down. So like just to have this simple, like little machine they've created that you can just throw on. It's quiet. It's indoors. You don't have to worry about keeping it up. I think it's a great idea.
And also
check it out.
It's the first time I've used now this virtual Zwift hub. So it's basically one sprocket, and with the joysticks on the handlebars, you change virtually the gears, which is quite nice. It's very smooth. You don't actually feel the derailleur shifting, but it's a very smooth pedaling.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty curious about trying the virtual shifting. I mean, anything that makes you feel like you're riding in real life when you're indoors is going to keep it more entertaining and easier to rack up those miles that you're doing. Are we sure you're not coming back in 2025? This is your comeback 2.0. You're going to be on, we're wondering who is Astana spending all this money on? Is it Johan Bruyneel? We don't know.
Or something? No. There's no chance, Spencer. No chance. I'm not never putting a number on again to compete. I've done in the last 2 or 3 years, I've done 2 events where I put a number on, but it was just like a mass participation because they have to identify who you are. But those days are gone. I'm just enjoying being out on the bike and, still taking advantage of the great weather for the moment here in Madrid. So yeah, I mean, I'm afraid unless you come up with something really special in December, Spencer, I'm afraid that you're not going to catch up with me on the kilometers. I think I'm about 700 kilometers ahead of you now.
Yeah, I'd have to do like a Milano Sanremo a day in the summer. Then I'm there. We'll see if that happens. Maybe I'll unleash something, but it's this travel. This travel's killing me. Yeah. I'm away from my setup. Oh my Lord. But 2025, you better watch out.
Okay.
First topic of the week. When you do make your comeback, Christian Prudhomme wants to make the ASO president, director, in charge of ASO, the sport's biggest.
No, he's Tour de France director, not ASO.
Tour de France director, employee at ASO. Oh, yes, you're right. Yeah. The ASO director is somebody else. Runs the Tour de France, obviously a big race, the biggest race in the sport. I think it's safe to say that David Lapartien, the UCI president, is made his views clear on rider safety, that it's like a rider's concern. If the riders want to be safer, they should race safer. Kind of end of story. He doesn't say much more about that. Prudhomme, I would probably say just personally, I think is maybe a slightly more thoughtful person, but he's jumped into it and said, the key to safety in pro cycling is for riders to go slower, is to like make them slower, make them ride slower, I guess by technological like throttling. I guess in theory, yeah, it would be safer if they were slower, but how would you go about doing that? How would you enforce that? And what do you think, Johan? Is this, I think about rider safety a lot. It's like one of those things that's easy to say, but it's hard to actually come up with real solutions that would work. Yeah, well, what do you think about this?
I think, we all agree that cycling is a dangerous sport, right? And that cyclists go faster and faster. Now, the statement of Christian Prudhomme, the Tour de France director, to say we need to make them slower. When I read that, I said, well, that's like the dumbest statement I've seen in the last year. I mean, how are you going to do that? You have to realize that obviously the conditions, everything gets more and more modern. So start, for example, with the quality of the roads. The road surface is smoother and smoother. Bikes go faster and faster. The bikes have improved. There's a UCI limit at 6.8 kilos. That's the lightest a bike can be. But what else can you do? I mean, what can you do to make a bike slower? Are you going to put, like huge tires on? I think what Prudhomme needs to realize is that the reason why cycling is going faster and faster, yes, the equipment has improved. Yes, the roads have improved. There's not much you can do about that. But the main reason is that the athletes have gotten better and better. Nowadays, you can see that races are going fast from the start till the finish. If I think back, not even in my days, but even in Lance's and George's period, the races didn't go full gas all the time. There was usually, a warm-up. There was a breakaway that went, and then the peloton slowed down. And they were using basically the easy parts of the course to recover. Downhills, they didn't go full gas. They go full gas everywhere now. So what can you do to stop that? Nothing. I think it's part of evolution, and it's all based on speed. You can't. What we're going to do, like aerodynamic skin suits, you're going to put like little parachutes on them that they're not not so. Do they need to wear baggy clothes again, or do they need to have super heavy bikes? I mean, look, I took this picture here as an example. This is a picture of a Tour de France cyclist winner, I think, in the early 1900s. Does he want to go back to this? Because he's always talking about cycling is romantic. We have lost the romanticism of the sport. Well, this looks romantic to me. This guy here not having the gear to get up the climb, he has to walk it. And then on the picture here, you see actually the Tour de France director walking next to him, giving him instructions. Is that what Prudhomme wants to be? That makes no sense. So I think that statement of slowing the riders down. I think what Prudhomme needs to realize is that first and foremost, if you talk about security and safety of bike races and cyclists, the number one thing that needs to be prioritized is the safety of the courses. And if you look at mass crashes, yes, there are crashes along the road, and there's a lot at stake, and you can argue, but there are things on certain courses that can be done a lot better. We've all seen some, like finishes in the Tour de France, for example, that are very questionable. They're getting better, but I still have the impression that they prioritize financial interest. Let's say, okay, this city has paid so much, and it needs to be in the city center because it brings a lot of attention to all the businesses there. They could do finishes on safer roads towards the city than just in a city center with 3 or 4 corners in the last kilometer. That is, in my opinion, the first thing. And then I think also there needs to be a system that monitors the courses way on beforehand. And it needs to be a neutral party, external party, not related to the Tour de France, not related to the UCI. It needs to be an external entity that approves the courses. Now, of course, there's a lot of races, there's a lot of stages, and it's a big job to do that. But it's not impossible. So I would say that's the main thing. The courses, and then at the same time, you also see, for example, because this issue has come up because there was the UCI Congress in Nice last week or last weekend, and Lapartien and Prudhomme got together. There was also the annual get-together of the AIOC, so it's AIOCC, which is the International Organization of Race Organizers. And who's the president of that organization? Take a guess, Christian Prudhomme. Who was also present at that meeting was David Lapartien. So there they got together again, and they were talking about safety. And Lapartien went on record recently, now again, but already many times, saying that he's definitely aware that cycling is dangerous, that there's a lot of crashes, but he, typical to any leader of an international federation, sports federation, puts the blame on others. It's never them. It's never their fault, because ultimately the UCI is the end responsible of approving the races and the courses that an organizer presents before they want their spot on the calendar. Now, Lapartien has the guts to say that the main responsible of the massive crashes are the riders and their behavior. There are some instances that's true, but that's not the main reason. There's obviously a lot at stake, and you break as late as possible, and where there's a little gap, you try to go. But that's always been like this. I think what you have to see also is that the courses are more and more difficult. There's a lot of traffic islands, a lot of speed bumps, a lot of traffic splitters. Sometimes it's well signalized, sometimes it's not so well like announced. But then Lapartien takes a step further and says, well, in his opinion, he wants the race radios to be banned. He wants to get rid of the race radio, so no more communication between team car and rider individually. His theory is that it's dangerous, that they're pushing the riders too much, and then his alternative is, and both him and Prudhomme are on the same page, by the way. They're in the same bed here. That they would want as an alternative. Yes, riders can ride with radios. Sometimes, I've seen some reports that maybe 2 riders per team, but then they would have all the same channel. The only thing they would have is race radio, which is, I've said that Prudhomme's statement was one of the dumbest. This is actually the dumbest idea you can imagine. If you know, and that's why I keep saying that a guy like Lapartien is so far distance from the reality of the sport of cycling. Because if you know what's going on in a cycling race, and especially in a race like the Tour de France and the chaos there is, if you would even dare to propose that solution, that's madness. Because just imagine everything that's going on race radio. That's actually the information that the directors get. All the team cars get the same, and it's constantly pay attention there, traffic island, this and that, in different languages. And then the directors filter that information and give the precise information to the riders in their own language, and directed to their riders only. Imagine that you have constantly this chaos in your ear, that you have to listen to it first in French, then in English, then whatever country you are. That's just not doable. So, I mean, the fact that you dare to propose that shows me that you are really very distant from the core of the sport, and again, they always put the blame on others. If it's an organizer that's in the fault, except ASO always gets a free pass. But if, for example, whatever, it's the Tour of Poland, let's say, or the Tour of Croatia in the past, got reprimanded for, and sometimes even justified, but it's always the responsibility of other parties. They're just there to make sure that everything's okay, except when there's a personal benefit for them, for the UCI, And I wanted to finish this rant. I do acknowledge it's a rant, but with this little example, Spencer, and this is how ridiculous this whole debate is about security and safety, coming from a guy like Lapartien. When they see a personal benefit, then all of a sudden safety is not an issue anymore. And here's an example. Have you ever seen a bike race downhill on snow?
I've seen like stunt ones, like down.
Well, here's an example of what this looks like. This bike race, a downhill race on snow. Now, the UCI has got the guts to take custody of this discipline, and they have now invented the UCI Snow World Championship. And this is what it looks like. I mean, are you then not, is safety not an issue anymore? No, we own this discipline now. I mean, it looks like they're obsessed with wanting to own whatever is on two wheels. I mean, if there's a bunch of guys who want to go down a hill on bikes, let them do it. But don't organize an official UCI World Championship for going down on bicycles. So, I mean, anyways, I just wanted to put it as an example. But to me, their speech, their position on safety is completely not accurate. And there are things that can be done. There have been initiatives from teams, from a number of teams that got together and wanted to make an agreement with an external policing system, let's say, to assess the situation and what can be better. But of course, the UCI has also taken custody of that, and now they own this part of the security. But it was an idea from the teams, and of course, it doesn't work because there's always things get overruled. And if you look at this company, it's called SafeR. I'm pretty sure that if you look at the evaluation, there's a lot of instances where organizers and the International Federation is at fault. But of course, that cannot be mentioned because they are commissioning it. So it's a debate which is, it's difficult. It's difficult, and it's not just black and white. But it's definitely not by following Prudhomme's idea of let's make them slower. It's not Formula One. Formula One, I can understand that they try to limit the speed of the cars because otherwise they're going to end up going 350, 400 kilometers per hour, and then they're going to take off in the air.
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of speeds have gone up, but for me the main reason is that the athlete has gotten so much better and stronger, and everything's taken care of. The training, the nutrition, the aerodynamics, the equipment. You cannot stop this. What is the bike industry going to say if they say, hey guys, now you need to go back to you ride bikes like this guy in the picture I just showed you, who has to walk up the mountain? It's not possible.
Yeah, I saw an interesting tweet actually from Dan Bingham, the technical guru who was at Ineos and then left. But it was like kind of a joke tweet that it's like, yeah, let's make bikes heavier. And then people will realize lighter bikes don't actually make you faster. It's all about aerodynamics and being strong. But yeah, just to explain the athletes better piece, the higher the level, people leave, you said even back in Lance and George's era could rest on the downhills. So it wasn't all out racing. But if the level increases, you have to find places on the course to make a difference. That's now the downhills. Now they're racing 100% of the course versus 50% of the course. Like in the past, the only thing I would say is, do you think that, and in F1, I should mention, I'm pretty sure they have a third party. They used to have really dangerous courses, and there were really tragic accidents where cars would go underneath the guardrails and then you could decapitate the rider. Obviously they realized, wow, that's really bad. We shouldn't let that happen. So I think they have a third party that goes through and inspects the course and says if a course is safe or not safe. And it's really helped make the sport safer. Even recently, I think it was Senna, one of the big stars there was a forklift or some sort of truck parked off the side of the course, and he died hitting it because it's an irregularly shaped object. Now they don't let you do that. So they have made things safer over the years. That is not just making drivers slower in F1. In cycling, do you think that when directors are in your ear with 100K to go, get to the front, get to the front, get to the front, and everyone's hearing that, does that make it more unsafe?
It does. There's no question about it. But at the same time, riders are so, and especially in nowadays cycling, if you look at the Tour de France and the chaos there is, because it's not just the riders. There's the motorbikes, the photographers, the caravan behind it. It's such a chaos that you cannot imagine not having communication. And by the way, Lapartien keeps saying, and he already attacked Richard Plugge for that. I was surprised to see them together on a picture last weekend. They said, yeah, we agree on almost everything. I think that was a really political picture. But he attacked Plugge on saying, yeah, you only want the radios because you want to give instructions to your riders. Hell yeah, Einstein. Of course we do. That's why it's called a director. And a director gives instructions to the rider. And cycling is a moving sport. It's not the same like you're coaching a football team and you're in a closed arena and you can give instructions and you can do signs and this is moving. And on top of that, the riders don't know where they're going. They don't know what's ahead of them. So the vast majority of the information that comes over the race radio is information on the course. And this is what's happening now. Comes a climb, there's 10 kilometers, 7%. The first kilometers are the steepest, whatever. And I would say 20 to 30% is tactics. But what's wrong with giving tactical instructions to your riders? I mean, these teams are companies with a big budget behind. I mean, how can you explain to a big sponsor who puts in whatever 30, 40 million that, okay, give us all this money, we're going to have these riders. Oh, but by the way, just so you know, we can't tell them what to do. You're going to pay them 3 million, but we can't tell them what to do. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah. Well, now you're like pulling at strings you're not supposed to pull at, Johan. Like the UCI, a lot of these regulations do seem incongruent with teams actually trying to command a lot of money to sponsor their teams. But I guess the UCI doesn't care about that, right? Like there's no aligned incentives there.
Oh no, I mean they don't care. I mean one team goes, another one comes. It's they don't care about that. But listen, it's a dictatorship. We all know it. It's a camouflage dictatorship, and Laportien is quite good at being the camouflage dictator because he's never at fault. He's always smiling. I put something on Twitter the other day. Somebody, like a journalist I know, had some criticism about his annual report. And Laportien is always there, smiling, taking selfies. He's always delighted, thrilled, excited, happy, honored. Those are his words. It's always I said to this guy, this UCI Congress, they gave a report of the whole year, and this is I've seen a lot of those meetings. It's the UCI Good News Show. Look at how great we have been during the year. Let's not talk about this. Let's not talk about this. It's I even saw like at the it's funny actually at the UCI Congress. So they did it in Nice. Normally it's like in Lausanne or somewhere. They did it in Nice for some reason. In my opinion, the reason why they did it in Nice because they wanted to make sure that Pogacar was present because he lives in Monaco, and so at least and there's no excuse of I can't make it. Now, Laportien had made preparations so that at the gala dinner after the awards, Pogacar had to sit next to Laportien. At the table, of course, to have the pictures taken and blah blah blah, and and Pogacar went to the awards. They gave him the award, and then unfortunately for Mr. Laportien, the seat of Pogacar stayed empty because he got a call from the doping controllers, and they were at his house, and he had to leave the party to go and do a doping test in Monaco. And so he didn't have his picture at the table with Pogacar finally.
That's pretty funny. I didn't know about that. Does that count? Does that count as a missed test? Do you have a certain amount of time to get home before they ding you?
I think so. Yeah.
They must, right? Because how would they account for you ever?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know how it works nowadays. If you would report that you're from this time to this time you're at the UCI Congress, then they would have had to show up there instead of at his house.
Yeah. But, I mean, I'm assuming you don't have to report like I'm going, like does Geraint Thomas have to fill in like I'm going to the pub from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m.
No, you don't. But if they come to your house and they call you, you have to go. You have to go to the house.
Interesting. That's hilarious, actually. That he probably, you're right. They did it in Nice just so he would be there, and then he missed half the show because of doping controls.
Yeah.
But and I mean, there are certain things like I'm thinking of Peter Stetina, Tour of the Basque Country. Tour of the Basque Country, kind of a common offender here. They turn into the finishing straight. And, it's common in Europe. These bollards, traffic bollards, very good. 364 days of the year. The day there's a bike race, maybe take them out because they come into the final straight and there's just a metal pole sticking.
Very simple. If you can't take them out, don't go there with the bike race, man. It's simple.
Yeah.
Put them on a safe road. That's. Anyways, long debate, long discussion.
I mean, most of these bollards, you look at them, most of them are they switch them around for events all the time. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that is like inexcusable.
I have to say though, I have seen places in Spain they're not removable,
where they're just there permanently. Yeah, where that can't be part of the course.
Yeah,
you can't have like they just literally turned onto a straight and like, yeah, so you're gonna have to dodge these.
Oh, I guess Statner's career basically finished there, right?
Yeah, for like no fault of his own.
Heavily injured and never made it back to the level he was before.
I guess it gets more complicated. Like this year's, would they have said this descent is too bumpy? I mean, I guess you could write that into the charter with whatever pre-ride organization this is.
I mean, there's places that are more dangerous than others, and that's always going to be the case. The big crash in the Basque Country was obviously because of the state of the road, but then the question is, were they informed? And also, there's so much at stake that you don't want to break. You don't want to lose 10 positions in the downhill because you know that you're never going to make it back to the front. So, it's not black and white. I do admit that, but I found it shocking to see the statements of those two basically leaders of the sport of cycling, because Prudhomme is the boss of the Tour and Lapartien is the boss of cycling.
So moving on to the next topic, this one's pretty interesting. So a Canadian amateur, Jack Burke, I've known about Jack for a while now. He was like he raced in the US, moved to Austria, joined like third division Austrian pro teams, did that shuffle. That's kind of a hard life. Didn't have a contract for this year. So now he wrote a book called How to Be a Pro Cyclist. It's a very good book. I think his second edition just came out. I also know him personally, so I'm biased here. But he started going I think his plan wasn't even really to ride this year. And then someone talked him into just like giving it one last go. He lives in like a beautiful part of Austria, great riding. He starts training in the spring. I think in the winter, he was just doing like skimo training and did a few skimo races. He gets in very good shape this summer, starts going for big KOMs. Good idea, actually.
Didn't he win almost all the races he participated in after the spring?
Yeah, he was doing, they're kind of like Grand Fondo. I guess they would be called like Grand Fondos if they were in the US, but they're very competitive. These European sportives, like some with extreme amounts of climbing. Like he did one to like, I forget, it's like a famous ski resort in Austria, but it's the
Grossglockner, probably.
Yes. Yeah. Very difficult climbs. He's crushing them. These are very competitive races to win. Like people probably focus on these all the time, and they would be putting up very competitive numbers. So he wins all these races. Still not on a team. I think he's on like a bar. Like Scott sent him a bike just for the year. I think he has to send the bike back at the end of the year. Let Jack keep the bike, Scott. But the first one he gets, I guess, publicly is the Stelvio. And if you're not familiar with the Stelvio, it's the record is his record time is 1:08. I think he beat it. I'm trying to look at second place. Is
Jay Hindley. Jay Hindley had the record when he won the Giro.
Over a minute back. Like he's 69 seconds behind him. And it's a very, very long climb. Finishes like it tops out over 9,000 feet. Mm-hmm. So it's extremely high. It's over 8% the whole time. And like, if you were an amateur doing this, you would like minimum double the time of this. So it's going to take you over 2 hours, probably, even on a decent day. That's how hard this climb is. And it's snowing at the top. Like you can see in his Instagram post that he's like wearing a puffy jacket. There's snow all over the place. So not perfect conditions. I think his weight is around 65, 66 kilograms. His average power, he just put everything's on Strava. He was flagged for a while, but now he's back. It says his average power was like just under 400 watts. So that is about, that's like 6 watts per kilo for over an hour at altitude. Super impressive. Then he does the Motorola, a really tough climb, shorter, 43 minutes, 45 seconds is his time. The average gradient on this thing's ridiculous. It's over 11% average gradient. his power is 435 watts. So, that's 6.5 watts per kilo.
Wow.
Like you're getting up there with, that's for 45 minutes, basically. You're getting up there with like.
He beat the time of Nibali by over a minute, I think. Nibali had the record.
Wait, yes, no, by like well over a minute. So he's 42.53. Nibali's 44.08.
Oh, wow.
So absolutely crushes Nibali's time. And then right before we decided, okay, we got to finally talk about this guy. And then he posts that he got the Alpe d'Huez KOM 30. I think he got flags, so you can't see, it won't. I think Strava will reconcile it at some point, but I just saw a screenshot that has him at 35.56. Sepp Kuss at 36.05, so he beat Sepp Kuss by about 9 seconds.
Well, Spencer, I did, because since I knew we were going to talk about this, I watched the video, and there's actually a video out there of his Alpe d'Huez record, right? And I'm so impressed because he just did this 2 weeks ago. I think it was the 11th of November, and so all by himself, no draft, no nothing. Let's not forget, these guys got drafted at some point in the race, and they only went hard the last 2-3 kilometers, like on their own, right? So, but at the bottom is 5 degrees Celsius, and it was 0 degrees Celsius at the top. I mean, to do that kind of performance in those temperatures, that's fucking impressive. Sorry for the word. Of course, compared to the guys who have these KOMs, it was in a race. Sepp Kuss got the fastest time on Strava, but it was finish on Alpe d'Huez. Nibali the same, and Jay Hindley the same, right? So it was after after a race, probably like 10 or 12 days in the race. So, and this is just pure time trial, but still, to go that fast on those climbs is insane. And so I was thinking, so where does this guy come from? And then you start to look, and he's been an okay rider, but nothing really special. So what's the deal? Of course, he's 29 years old. Must be an amazing climber. I didn't know his weight, but he looks tiny. His bike is specially prepped for the climbs, no bottles, nothing, super light, everything. But still, him personally. So what's your take on this? Where do you see this going?
My take on it is, obviously I'm a little biased because I would say it's actually shocking to me no one has signed him. You would say the downsides are he's old, right? He's 29. Can he even ride in a bunch? But he's raced at a pretty high level. Like he did all the big US races, and then he was racing, in Europe.
Spencer, riding in the US is not synonymous to be able to race in a bunch in Europe. That's I've seen that a lot in the past with young Americans. But anyway.
He has finished top 20 at the Tour of Slovenia, which is a big race in 2022. So like he's doing these third to fourth level races in Europe for a few years, but still, like he's you can't bring him in and expect him to. He's not going to do like Sepp Kuss's job right off the bat. There's a learning curve. But you would say another guy that went pro around that same age, at least World Tour pro, is Mike Woods, another Canadian. He had way less experience, so he'd be ahead of the Mike Woods curve. Think of it, just pure watts per kilo, 6.5 for 43 minutes. Just think about like Total Energies. Do they have a single rider that can do that? It's possible. No. No. They have nobody. So if you just work backwards and think we could sign for probably a minimum contract, we could have a rider that can come out and outperform everyone on our team as a climber. Maybe he doesn't win a big race. Maybe he struggles, but you could at least say, hey, why don't you jump in some breaks in the Giro? Let's see what happens. We're going to give you a guy to help you get in the breaks, and we'll see what happens. At least you're giving yourself a chance on stages that you don't currently have a chance on. So, and I know that like rosters are getting full, things like that, but it's a little. I'm just looking here because for me the most logical team would be that he goes to Israel Premier Tech, right? As having a Canadian component, but they're full. They have 30 riders. And he did a training camp with them, I believe last year or the year before. But here's the thing, like there's a couple things that going against him. So in 2013, he had, I think it was 2013, he had a weird adverse analytical finding. And there's all these small Canadian races that are, these French Canadian races that are the biggest. I'd like, if you want to be a big pro in North America, you go to these races, but they're kind of in the middle of nowhere. So I think it was before one of the stages. It's the Tour Abidi, something like that. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but he got like water from that was like at a country club, and he got water from the clubhouse, and then he tested positive for, I don't have the name of the drug in front of me, but they went through this like big tribunal. They gave him a no fault. I think it's like a no fault positive because they figured out it was probably in the groundwater that he got the water from.
Contamination.
Yeah, contamination. So he technically didn't like get suspended, didn't miss any time. The UCI or WADA said it was a no fault AAF, adverse analytical finding. I guess you could say, well, maybe some team is suspicious of him because of that. But I really think it's just, you meet guys like this, and obviously he's super motivated. That's the reason he's this fast and getting all these talented and motivated. They can tend to, if they don't have the right training plan, they can just ride themselves into the ground. Mm-hmm. I would guess that's what's happened to him, why he wasn't crushing it in the US. And if you don't have think about cycling so much about mentorship, because you need someone like to teach you how to live, teach you how to train, teach you how to race, and then also advocate for you. So if he's not winning the big races, if he doesn't win Tour of Utah, then he needs someone to go to a team and say, hey, you should sign this guy. He's really good. If you don't have that, it can be tough. And you're right. Israel Premier Tech would be the obvious landing spot, but it's not, as you said, they're full. And then let's just say he shows up to their camp. He's a little run down, a little injured. He had a broken hip. He had a lot of injuries. I think he got hit by a car, broke his hip, wasn't riding his best. And, they have a good young core. And then they have like this young core that they probably don't want to flick anybody from. And then their older riders are kind of locked in. Like, I think Sylvan Adams has made it pretty known that he would rather not have Chris Froome taking up a roster spot, but they can't move Froome. It's like, I think maybe they had Jakob Fuglsang. I don't know if he's still on the team, but they have these older riders.
He just announced that he keeps going another year, I think.
So it's a little bit of bad luck, I think, that the one team he
could in theory go to their development team.
Can he though at that age?
Yeah, you can.
You can. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's actually a little weird to me. They haven't picked him up just for their development team. It seems kind of low risk.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Maybe he will be on that team. Yeah, I'm just checking. There's guys on there from there's a Canadian of 27 years old on that team, so that's in theory doable. He could be on that team, and then nowadays the way it works with the team structures, you can be on that team and then be once in a while transferred to the big team to do certain races, as long as this is not World Tour races. But yeah, I mean, listen, it has happened before. There's been guys that were all of a sudden noticed because they had a KOM. Listen, Jonas Vingegaard was discovered that way because he broke the record on Col de Rat. Then there's, the guys who win the Zwift Academy who get noticed, and some of them get pro contracts. So, why not? Maybe there is some. I read somewhere that there is one or two teams who got in contact with him and showed some interest. So I'm curious to see if it's going to go somewhere. But interesting guy to follow. Pretty impressive to have the KOM on the Mortirolo, the Stelvio, and Alpe d'Huez. There's not many riders who have it.
No. I mean, and like Alpe d'Huez, he kind of squeaked out. But like, if you think about Alpe d'Huez and the Stelvio too, so much about drafting. Like if you have a full team, like if you go back and watch that Jai Hindley Stelvio ascent, and he's in the pack for a lot of the race. Like he's getting a lot of draft. To do that by yourself in the cold, that's not when you're flying up climbs. It's really impressive. And, you were saying like, how could he fall through the cracks? But in cycling, I mean, if you're not from a non-core country, you don't have a lot of advocates, you can be super talented, but if you're not showing the talent at exactly the right time, a lot of people won't take a chance on you. It's like, I don't know. Like do we really want to take a swing at this guy? Is he ever going to put it together? But like clearly he's demonstrated now that he can string together good training and put that into results.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, some people just don't race well when they feel like, if you're on a third division Austrian team and I think he was like living in a barn, like he's like barely had a home. Like that's not
definitely
great.
wants to make the step. That's for sure. He's looking for it, but
and sometimes you can want it too much and it hurts your racing. Like you're never racing relaxed, which could be a big thing. I mean, I'm just looking at like Intermarché, like 27 riders in a contract for 2025. Some teams maybe don't want to destabilize the situation by bringing in someone they don't know.
I think it's more the factor of the unknown, that, okay, let's take a bet on this guy, but we don't really know what we're going to get because I think, and at this stage in the season, they've done their homework all, and maybe they can say, that's not worth it. Let's just, if he's 29 and he hasn't shown it now, it's because of a reason. But maybe a team takes the bet. Who knows?
I'd assume like a team like Total Energies, you're speaking French too in the team. So if you're not fluent in French, like I know like Larry Warbus had to learn French before he went to decathlon. A lot of people would not be able or willing to do that with such a short amount of time. So a lot of times your soft skills can play a bigger part than people think. Last topic, just to circle back on this before we get to the questions, we talked about Maxime Van Heels last week. Speculation he would break his contract with Lotto Destiny. He did break his contract with Lotto Destiny. His agent announced he is a free agent. We don't know where he's going. I read an article that said Astana and Red Bull are the two biggest suitors, the two favorites, with Movistar and Ineos behind them. And just one update on Ineos. We said last week they were full. I guess they have sent 2 riders down to their development team, so they do have free roster spots now.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. I mean, they announced today, I think, that they reached an agreement. So Lotto and Van Gils have reached an agreement. So they've agreed on the buyout clause, which, as I said in the last week, it's going to be around $1 million, which is pretty good. I mean, it's the equivalent of his running contract. I think it was 500,000 next year and 600,000 the year after. So the law in Belgium permits to break your contract if you pay that amount. Of course, they would have prepared to keep him, but once the rider has made up his mind and doesn't want to be there, then I think it's also not really smart to fight against that and try to keep him against his will, because you're going to pay him a lot of money and the guy's not going to be happy. So, I'm curious to see. I still think that Red Bull is in pole position. Something tells me that they kind of had it done more or less, maybe a verbal agreement, I don't know, or a promise, whatever. And then once the news got out, then other people got interested. And I've heard that, what is it called? XDS Astana, is it called? I guess so. XDS Astana is also now in the running, because for them, it's a guy that would make some sense, because he's a rider that can score a lot of points next year. It's a guy who wins races, but on top of that, if he doesn't win, he's second, third, fourth, and can get a lot of points. I still have serious doubts if that would be enough for Astana to get a spot on the World Tour. I don't think so. I think that ship has sailed, but they will keep trying. So they apparently have the budget for next year, because reportedly with the new sponsor, the Chinese carbon manufacturer, they will double their budget. So let's say if it's 20 million now, it would be 40 million in the future. So they definitely have the chance to buy out the contract and to pay Van Gils what he thinks he's worth.
Yeah, and I would assume the reason he hasn't just signed for Astana is because Wayne, would you rather go to Red Bull with more competition in the team and be on one of the sports top teams, or essentially you're signing up to be relegated the year after? And his agent, Alex Carrera, said it's minimum 3-year contract. So that would be, you'd be going back, I guess, to where he is now.
True, you're relegated, yes, but he would be in the same situation as he was on Lotto now. basically being number one or two in the pro teams and having access to all the races anyway. But if I would be Van Gils, I would definitely not recommend him to sign for Astana. That's not the best environment for him.
Yeah, like the path to underachieving in your career is well paved at Astana. I feel like a lot of I knew someone that went there as like a young rider, and I don't feel like they ever achieved what they could have. It's like a choose your own adventure team. It's not a
very, very complicated team. I've been the manager 2 years of that team, Spencer. So I know, you know, the people may have changed, but it's still the same. So, you know, I would not recommend him to go there.
You'd think Red Bull Bora like that. If you want to develop, that seems like where you'd want to be.
I think so. Yeah.
You also see the importance of Ineos getting that development team, but they just got like a week and a half ago, because now they can
it's
be
not,
more flexible
really,
with your roster.
It's not really their development team, right? It's like a third party that they associate.
Yeah. With. Yeah. But I guess they still have now the flexibility to say, like, Peter Oxenberg, you're 19, you're going to go race for them, and we can call you up when we need you. I mean, some NBA teams do this. Like, I don't think the Denver Nuggets have a G League team, but they have some partnership, and then you can send riders down and send them back up. On the topic, first listener question, perfect symmetry with this. It is, again, info@wedo.team. We're getting a lot of questions, so I'm not going to get to all of them right away. We will try to get your question as soon as we can. It is from Mark. Could you provide a progress report for AJ August at Ineos? The young American said to be like Remco, but probably with more power. I think that was Axel Merckx who said that. I don't think AJ probably loved that quote got out there, but you know, he's a guy. He's 19, same age as Peter Oxenberg on Ineos. I don't think that he was managed that well. I just have a lot of questions about how his season went, where, you know what his fourth professional race was, Johan? This man is, by the way, he's 57 kilos.
I'm going to say, and I think I'm well placed to say it, I'm going to say Paris-Roubaix.
Yeah. A
57 kilo. I'll tell you why, Spencer, because we were at Paris-Roubaix with the Move Travel. And so we had two spots in one of the vans, and last minute I got the request of the parents of AJ, who flew like last minute ticket to France from the States, because he got called up like the day before, 2 days before, to do Paris-Roubaix. And so I had both of his parents with me in the car during the day of the ride, the day of Paris-Roubaix. So we followed him with interest, and you know, it's not a race that you would put an 18-year-old neo-professional in without any notice. I can understand that sometimes, you know, with people getting injured or sick last minute, you have to, you know, call up somebody, but hey, call up somebody else, you know, not this kid with no experience. And he finished the race. I think he was just out of the time limit, but he did finish the race, because I remember I was with his parents in the tribune at the finish line, and we waited until he came in. Obviously, you know, he's a big talent. He has a huge potential. For some reason, I don't really know if he had some health issues or injuries, but it doesn't seem to me like he had a full program of races where he could really expose himself and his qualities.
Yeah, I mean, I just have a lot of questions. Like, how did that happen? You know, like, what were they thinking? I guess that just shows you there must be some confusion at Ineos, or not a clear directive from up top all the way down.
Ineos is known as, you know, they kind of got most of their success by buying talent and not developing talent. And I hope that this is not the case for AJ, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I would also guess he's just fatigued. Like, he went from a club team to a world tour team.
Hard. I mean, the guy has potential. I remember him. His name came up for the first time when I saw him. I watched the race on TV and on cyclocross, and he won the World Cup cyclocross on the Koppenberg as a junior, as part of the USA program, USA Cycling program. And so, listen, the guy's good. The guy's good. We can't expect also the first year that he's going to, show everybody and be in the front all the time. But I'm pretty sure that he will be in, next year or 2 years, in 2 years' time, he will be on the top.
I would say highlight of his year. This is in July, Czech Tour, 7th place overall, which is really good because that was won by Mark Hirschi, Diego Ulissi second, Sergio Higuita third. Not a super, like he was only a minute behind Hirschi for the overall. So really good race at the Czech Tour. I mean, for an 18-year-old neo pro, like that's kind of all you can expect just to show something in a race like that. It's just really about the next few years. The fact that he's at Ineos does concern me.
Well, they must let him grow slowly. It's still very early, and most of the times also it's probably also these young kids also who want to go really fast already. Like they want to progress super fast because they need to take their time, man. They need to get the experience, that their body, assimilate all the efforts and get a little bit stronger month by month or year by year. You can't expect them to be on top of there straight away. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, like Magnus Sheffield, kind of another similar talent at Ineos, American, 3 years older though, 22. Came in with a lot of promise. It hasn't really. He just kind of posted similar seasons since he joined, but he did get like 6th at Tour of Flanders. So that shows there is improvement happening.
That guy has some power, let me tell you.
Yeah, like that to get 6th at Flanders at 22. It's really difficult to do. Like really difficult. So there is improvement happening. Some riders are improving at the team. I guess we'll see how it plays out. You do have like the new and improved Ineos. Maybe he'll thrive under there. But next question that I thought was pretty interesting. Johan, I was watching the 89 Tour last night, and aside, this is not me, this is a listener. Aside from the fact that the riders were taking water bottles and drinking from them on the side of the road, the most shocking thing for me was how much more the riders rocked on their bikes on the hard climbs compared to today's riders who barely move side to side in the saddle. Is this because bikes are stiffer and lighter, or better training and understanding of the physics of riding, or any other reason? Thanks. Love the show.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, for me, the very simple answer is that the main reason, and I would say the only reason, is the gearing.
Yep.
Back in the days, I showed this picture a while ago there, but it was the gears they were using was 39-23. Almost all the stages, and sometimes 39-25. Nowadays, in most of the mountain stages, I would guess they're riding 36, 34, or 36, 32, whatever. For a pro, that's. I mean, you can spin. So I think the main reason is the gearing. You had to really work the bike to move those gears to propel your bike forward.
Yeah, you're right. It's the gearing. I think he talked about this like a couple weeks ago. It's the reason I picked the question, like how insane it was. People were getting up these climbs like the Motorola with like a 39-23 or 39-21 if you're on the straight corn cob. But the gearing is different. It's like the technology pushed the gears out, but then it also took a while for people to understand. Like you were talking about, you had a manager that like said you couldn't ride a 28 or something, like
25.
Yeah, like there was this thought, like, do you remember ankling when it was like Tom Boonen is ankling and that's how he's so good? Like, it's like, no, you should just spin as fast as you can and it will save your legs and you'll be faster. Like there's no like secret technique of some big gear that people thought. I think Team Sky, I mean, really blew everyone out of the water. Like, remember like Wiggins almost never stood up when he won the Tour in 2020. I think that was 2012. Like, it was like, oh yeah, you're more efficient when you're sitting down. I mean, obviously there are even like nuances there where UAE there was telling me that actually when you stand up, you can clear some of the lactic acid because your arms are now engaged and you can like flush it out of your body. So there is a balance to strike there. You don't just want to sit down all the time, but it's really, in short, they figured out scientifically that just sitting down and spinning is the best way to get up climbs fast.
Well, yeah, those theories change all the time. Also, this is a subject for another podcast. But coincidentally, I have a young son who's racing, so he's always coming, with, now it's this way, and now it's this way. And here's a tomorrow. Look, the tilted brake levers.
Yeah.
This tomorrow, for the first time, I'm going to try it. I want to see if it really works. And I think, if you look at it, it does. It makes sense. But another thing, for example, which I've been looking into is the length of the cranks. When I was a cyclist, we were put in our mind, and it made sense logically that the longer lever you would have, the better it would be. So I was on 175, then 177 and a half, and time trials even 180. Now it's the opposite, that they go shorter. Pogacar's on 165. I spoke to a friend the other day who's preparing for a triathlon, amateur level, but he's riding 160 cranks on the time trial bike. So, a lot changes, and actually the reasoning behind those new trends makes sense to me. But anyway, coming back to the rocking the bike, it's the gearing. It's the gearing.
I do think that, I think you'll like it when he's shifting the brifters, the shifters. I like it, but I'm not sure if I went on record on one of the podcasts, or if I said it privately to somebody. I said, and this is last year or 2 years ago, I said, the day you see me on a bike with my brake levers tilted, you have my permission to hit me off my bike. Tomorrow, we're gonna, everybody can change their mind, So tomorrow I'm gonna try it out. I only did it because the Ventum. We both have Ventums. Thank you, Ventum, and they came like slightly angled in, and I just didn't move them. And I actually have a hard time riding without them angled in slightly. I don't think Visma ever did that though, which makes me think like, what do they know that we don't know? Jonas
doesn't do it, at least not as extreme as today.
Yeah. And you'd think that they don't do things just to do them. So I'd be curious what information they have. So last question.
I prefer to just, I checked out a bit of reports and some studies, and then I prefer to try it out myself before I talk about it. So I'll let you know after tomorrow in a message if it works or not.
I'm dying.
I think it does.
We'll talk about it next week on the show. Last question for the week. So I was just thinking about that this morning. That's why I'm picking this one. But a few weeks ago, Johan mentioned that cycling teams don't have a franchise value and are tied entirely to their sponsor contracts. Why is that? It has to be more than just stadium deals. There would have to be some franchise value in Belgium for the Wolfpack, sponsored by Soudal Quickstep, right? This is a good point. The Oakland A's have no permanent home. They are currently homeless, a shrinking fan base, no major sponsorships, and they're valued at $1 billion. There has to be something I'm missing. Mike in Texas. I would say, Johan, do you want to go first about the why don't teams, like you've run multiple teams, like why is there no franchise value? And then I have a theory for why the A's can command such a price tag without a home.
Yeah, well, I think the main reason is because cycling, it's also the way it's structured and the way it has been done all the time. And, you always say it cannot be done until somebody does it, right? So things can always change. But in my opinion, the attractiveness of a sponsor having the ability to have the team named with the name, that takes away the value, because you could say, okay, the Wolfpack sponsored by, right? But then there's going to be other teams who say, oh, we offer the whole name,
Yeah.
And that's actually, okay, it's the Soudal Quickstep team. It's the Lotto team. It's not the Wolfpack sponsored or presented by or powered by Soudal, whatever, I think we would have to go to something like that. Like every team has its name that stays the same, and then the sponsors can come in. But the fact that that's not a rule, and that there's always going to be other teams who offer the whole name, it cannot be done, because if you pay 10 million and you'll be okay, powered by Lotto or being the Lotto team, I know what where I would be going.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you see this a little bit. Like, obviously, for an NFL team, the Denver Broncos cannot bring on a sponsor and call themselves Oracle Broncos. They just wouldn't be allowed to do that. So I think where you get the best analogy is Formula One, because some of those teams, like Mercedes, is sponsored and partly owned by Ineos, but they're not called Ineos. They're called Mercedes. Like, they've held their name. I think you can sell your name off, but the big difference between F1 teams and the Oakland A's, like Oakland A's, great example. They don't have a home. Okay. So how are they worth $1 billion? Well, if Johan, we could go out and buy a cycling team today, but what we would be buying? Maybe a bus, maybe some bikes, maybe a lease on an office or a service course. But mainly we would be buying a liability to write a bunch of checks to a bunch of riders.
You buy, I mean, if you buy a team, that you would buy the remaining time on the sponsoring contract, right? So if they have
like Quick Step or something has
you buy the remaining time, and you buy the guaranteed contracts of the riders who will represent that brand. But that means that you have to start working straight away beyond the expiration of the contract that to guarantee your continuity. So you basically buy a bit of time and 3 years of guarantee, but not much more.
You're buying the right to spend a bunch of money. You're not buying any revenue. The difference with like F1 teams and the Oakland A's is, if we went and bought the Oakland A's, we would borrow money to do it, and we would be buying revenue from the TV contracts. It's like, actually in the US, the stadium, like you make money day of the game. Really, the big money you make is from TV deals.
That's the whole thing. That's the whole discussion, and the weakness of the cycling teams is that they have no TV revenue, none. I mean, the only thing that I can think off the top of my head that they have some revenue, but it's actually too ridiculous to even mention it. It's the 50,000 euros per team they get from the Netflix series. That's it. And then of course, if you do your own documentary, you can sell it to Netflix or to HBO, whatever. But the TV rights are at the wrong place, and that's always the same discussion. The main player is ASO, is the Tour de France. That's where the most of the money is, and the TV rights. And as soon as there's a discussion with whatever project, whatever proposal, that the teams come with to work together with ASO, as soon as you start to name the TV rights, discussion is over. There's no discussion. They will not share 1% of it. And as long as it's like this, then there's nothing to be done. Cannot be done. Or a big player needs to come in, like the Saudis with their PIF fund, and buy the whole league or something, and redistribute the rights.
Yeah, and the reason that ASO can do this is, just like, to stay with the A's, like Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball is a league, and they own they negotiate their TV rights. They're just the sum of all the teams, and they're all like the 30 or 32 baseball teams, however many there are the Major League Baseball Association. So it's like the teams are banding
here
together.
You have the advantage is that the members of the league and the co-owners of the league or the teams, but these teams, these 32 teams, you say, are teams that will remain existing with or without a sponsor, with or without a title sponsor, because they have other revenue. In cycling, the teams cannot be co-owners of a league, or a professional league or a breakaway league, whatever call it, because we don't know of those 20 teams or those 18 teams. We don't know who's going to be there in 2 or 3 years, because their sponsorship deal expires and there's no guarantee that it will still exist. So you can't have that ownership if you only know that you're going to exist 2 years later.
I guess in theory, Major League Baseball, I looked it up, it's 30 teams. They don't know that they'll be around. They only know that they'll be around because the TV deals, it's like the chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
I guess, like, theoretically, let's just say this isn't going to happen, but theoretically, let's say the 18 World Tour team said, forget us, ASO. If you don't share TV profit with us, we're leaving. So they leave. And then Let's just pretend it does.
Okay,
So
okay.
they like form the super big great cycling race in July. They put it on in Germany, and then they would go sell the TV rights. And like, Flanders Classics does this where they you have to pay to stand on the best part of the course. Like they have actually quietly carved out a little extra revenue from doing stuff that's quite taboo in cycling. But you would do that where you'd have to like pay to stand on the side of the road. You'd have to pay to watch the race. Where this starts to get fuzzy is, would people actually pay a lot of money to watch cycling on TV? Or, ASO doesn't make a ton of money from the TV rights. Like if they share their TV rights money, it wouldn't be very much money because they really just give it away. I think there's even a French law that they have to give away, like France TV, which is the free station in France, like just airs it, and you can just like plug your TV into the wall and watch the race. So they are commanding a massive premium for that. But the question, I guess, is, if this happened and all these teams did this, would people actually would networks be lining up to pay the Pro Cycling League a ton of money for these rights? Like, I think that gets a little dicey.
There's a lot of history now, and breaking a 100-year history tradition of free access to the sport. It's not easy. It would need to be something parallel, where you kind of set up a circuit with the best riders, and they race a formula of whatever, 3 or 4 day races all the time, the same, and you can only see those guys there competing against each other. And it would take some time. And of course, if it takes some time, it needs a big check behind it.
Yeah.
And then what you would have is whoever team participates in this, let's say Saudi funded league parallel, and they still participate in the other races too, they would get straight away sabotaged by the UCI, because if the UCI is not part of it, they would say, okay, well, if you participate there, then you're sanctioned. You're not. We take away your license. You're not allowed to race in the other race, in our races.
Yeah, and like you're right. It would have to be like Saudi funded. You need so much money to keep these teams going and this project going until it can make any money. It would have to be a really big check. And if you think about, okay, what's the UCI's punishment? It would be the other race as well. I'm racing in the Saudi League. What do I care? It's really the World Championships. It'd be like, Pogacar, if you go race in the new league, you're not doing Worlds.
Well, like, then you just make another World Championships.
You start to wonder, like, like golf went through this a few years ago, and you wonder, like, was any of that good for golf? And then now PIF has basically bought the PGA Tour, and they're going to combine those back into one, like the dual system. I don't know if cycling has the juice to do that, but there is a precedent because soccer was free to air in the UK for a long time. Like, as you're saying, long tradition of it. I believe in Rupert Murdoch in 1993 just created the English Premier League. Like that just was like a brainchild of a marketing executive. They come up with that. They put it behind a paywall on Sky, and it's still there today. Like, you have to sign up for the Sky pay package to watch the Premier League in the UK. The reason it worked, though, is that it's like popular enough to get over the hump, and like people put up with it and pay a bunch of money to watch the sport. You wonder, and I'm sure there's people that know more about this than I do with, like, F1's done the same thing. Like, I think you generally have to pay to watch Formula One. Same thing with baseball in the US. It's not as popular as it used to be, but they're probably making more money, and there's all types of calculations you'd have to do there to figure out if it's worth it. And I mean, one thing we haven't mentioned yet with this, like, okay, the A's might have a great value, but because someone's going to buy them and think I can make a bunch of money with this. But if baseball keeps getting less popular, will there be people there in the future to buy the expensive baseball packages to watch baseball? So it's not all like rosy for these other necessarily rosy for these other sports versus cycling's spray it out model, and people will watch it free on TV, which is actually going away. Like, it's not going to be free to air in the UK after this year. It's just going to be behind the Eurosport paywall.
Time will tell, Spencer. Time will tell. It's people from within cycling would say, this will not be done. This cannot be done in cycling, and it's the same like always. It cannot be done until somebody comes along and does it. It will happen at some point, but who knows when.
They'll probably, I mean, if it does happen, you'll probably be a lot fewer teams, like 10 top flight teams, and we'll look back and think, man, that's crazy. We had 18 World Tour teams.
Yes.
That would be my guess, that you'll have to band together some of these big budget teams to create like just a really, really, really robust, financially robust top tier.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Well, Johan, it's Black Friday. We'll let you go out and get your Black Friday shopping in.
Listen, it's 9 o'clock at night here. There's no, I can't go. If it's not online,
are just opening in Spain.
If it's not online, I'm not getting anything from Black Friday. But I wasn't planning on it anyway. So,
all right. Well, thank you for joining us, and we will be back next week.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Bye.